Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. I'm extremely sorry for this delay. I was traveling and had to condole a death. Just arrived. I'm about 7 minutes late. Apologies once again. We start off without any further ado. The Quranic verses that we are going to discuss today have been labeled as the 10 Commandments of the Quran. They are found in Surah Bani Israel, and the verses, to be exact, start from 22 and end on 38. So the words are: لا تجعل مع الله إلها آخر فتقعد مذموما مخذولا وقضى ربك ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه وبالوالدين إحسانا إما يبلغن عندك الكبر أحدهما أو كلاهما فلا تقل لهما أف ولا تنهرهما وقل رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا ربكم أعلم ما في أنفسكم إن تكونوا صالحين فإنه كان للأوابين غفورا وآتي ذا القربى حقه والمسكين وابن السبيل ولا تبذر تبذيرا إن المبذرين كانوا إخوان الشياطين وكان الشيطان لربه كفورا وإما تعرضن عنه ابتغاء رحمة من ربك ترجوها فقل لهم قولا ميسورا ولا تجعل يدك مغلولة إلى عنقك ولا تبسطها كل البسط فتقعد ملوما محسورا إن ربك يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ويقدر إنه كان بعباده خبيرا بصيرا ولا تقتلوا أولادكم خشية إملاق نحن نرزقهم وإياكم إن قتلهم كان خطأ كبيرا ولا تقربوا الزنا إنه كان فاحشة وساء سبيلا ولا تقتلوا النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق ومن قتل مظلوما فقد جعلناه لوليه سلطانا فلا يسرف في القتل إنه كان منصورا ولا تقربوا مال اليتيم إلا بالتي هي أحسن حتى يبلغ أشده وأوفوا العهد إن العهد كان مسؤولا وأوفوا الكيل إذا كلتم وزنوا بالقسطاس المستقيم ذلك خير وأحسن تأويلا ولا تقف ما ليس لك به علم إن السمع والبصر والفؤاد كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا ولا تمشي في الأرض مرحا إنك لن تخرق الأرض ولن تبلغ الجبال طولا كل ذلك كان سيئه عند ربك مكروها. Slightly longish verses, but just bear with me. I'll just translate them before you and realize that how great a treasure they are for all of us. And make no other deity than God, lest on the day of judgment you are left blameworthy and disgraced. And your Lord has enjoined you to worship none but Him, and to be very kind to your parents, if either or both of them reach old age in your presence. Be not ill-tempered with them, nor scold them, but speak to them respectfully and treat them with humility and tenderness. And pray, Lord, shower your mercy on them the way they cared for me in childhood. Your Lord fully knows what is in your hearts if you remain obedient. He is very forgiving to those who turn to Him. And give to the nearer folk their due, and also to the needy and the traveler. And do not squander your wealth wastefully, for the wasteful are Satan's brothers. And Satan is very ungrateful. To his Lord. And if you have to ignore those in need because you are still seeking your Lord's bounty for which you are waiting, then at least speak to them gently. And do not be stingy or extravagant, so that you should either earn reproach or be reduced to indigence. Indeed, your Lord gives profusely to whom He pleases, and sparingly to whom He pleases. He is aware of His servants and observes them. And do not kill your children fearing poverty. We provide them as well as you. This is because killing them is a very dreadful crime. And do not even go near adultery, because it is blatant vulgarity and a very evil path. And do not unjustly kill any person whose life has been held sacred by God. And if a person is killed unjustly, we have given his heir an authority. Then he too must not exceed bounds in his revenge, because he has been helped. And do not even go near the wealth of orphans except in a goodly manner, until they reach maturity. And keep your promises, because promises will be subjected to accountability. Give full measure when you measure, and weigh it with correct scales. This is better and fairer with regard to the consequences. And do not go after what you know, not because your eyes, and do not go after what you know not, because your eyes, ears, and heart, each of them shall be held accountable. And tread not the earth with arrogance, because neither can you cleave asunder the earth, nor reach the height of the mountains. The evil of each of these to your Lord is very displeasing. Ladies and gentlemen, you can clearly see this set of verses, how important and how very significant a message that they give. And they can be truly classified as the 10 Commandments of the Qur'an. You can see that all the basic moral directives which we need to follow in all moral vices that we need to abstain from are so soundly and beautifully outlined in these Quranic verses. I'll just say a word or two about each of them, and of course then we'll proceed on. It starts off with saying that make no God other than God. Of course, telling us that Tawheed and monotheism itself is the biggest moral principle. It is in fact a moral violation when we adhere to polytheism. And then it is said that you have to worship God alone because He is the only deity. And we have to be kind to our parents. This is something of a very common thing which is mentioned in the Quran. The right of the parents is immediately mentioned generally after the right of the Almighty, telling us how significant and how important we have to be in our mannerisms, in our conversation, and so many things regarding which we come in interaction with our parents. Especially it is said that if either of both of them reach old age in our presence, then we have to be very patient, because we know that parents, when they reach old age, they become irritable. They become children themselves. They ask questions or they repeat things and do a lot of things which of course can be annoying for people. But look what the Quran says, that you have to be gentle to them, you must not be harsh to them. La taqul lahuma uffin, you should not be ill-tempered to them. And of course you have to pray for them, that Lord, shower your mercy on them the way they were merciful to us when we were growing up. So this is a sort of petition, it's a pledge, it's an invocation that we make before the Almighty, that please, the beings who brought us into existence, who sacrificed their lives and time and skills and energy for us, shower your mercy on them. And then, of course, it is said that you have to fulfill the rights of the poor, the indigent, the needy, all those people in need. They require our assistance and help. We have to look around for them. We have to find them. At times they find us, but better still that we find them and we give them the best we can, even if it is a smile, even if it is a shoulder which we can lend, and even if we can just wipe off a tear or two from their cheeks. All these acts of kindness, they too count. And important thing is that we must not be wasteful. As the Quran says, that the wasteful are Satan's brothers. This is again a very important directive, that waste is something which leads to extravagance. Of course, it is extravagance itself. It's something which also leads to a waste of resources and money, which can of course be put to more beneficial causes. And then it is said that if we are not able to do anything for a person who might be coming to us for any need, then at least we should speak to that person very kindly. If we are not able to help him or her out, let us be very kind in our words and gentle and soft in our speech. Of course, it's said that we must not be either very stingy, or we must not be too much of spendthrift, so that when the need arises, we are left blameworthy and we have nothing to give other people if they are there. And of course, this heinous practice of killing children because of poverty existed in Arabia in the times of the Prophet. And it is said that do not kill your children for fear of poverty, because it is God who provides them. It's not you. You become the means of that provision. It is basically God who provides them. The words are, Nahnu narzuquhum wa iyyakum. We nourish them, we provide sustenance to them and to you also. So therefore, do not kill your children, your progeny, for fear of poverty, because this is a grave sin. And then do not even think of going near fornication, because this is something which is a dreadful path. It's going to destroy your family life. It's going to make you a potential addict to something, and it will disallow you from concentrating and devoting your attention to your own spouse. And you must not kill people. And if this is done, then we should remember that the Almighty has given their ear and authority, and hence they have to be extremely careful. What has been regarded by holy as God, of course, is the life of everyone. It is something that we have to be very, very careful about. We must not even think of devouring the wealth of the orphans. La taqrabu mal yatim, not even go near them, illati hiya ahsan, until they, of course, reach the age of maturity. And then if we make a promise, if we make a commitment, then come what may, we must honor our commitment. We must honor our pledge and our word. A gentleman's word, when given, is equivalent to one's own promise. It's equivalent to a pledge. It's equivalent to an oath, and therefore we must not go back on our oaths, because as the verses say, in al-ahda kana mas'ula, we shall be held answerable to all our oaths on the day of judgment. And then we must weigh with equal scales and measurable scales, such that we are not dishonest in weighing out for others. And then la taqfu ma laysa laka bihi ilm. We must not go after things that we don't have any knowledge of. We must not make things look as if we are trying to fish them out without actually knowing what their exact status is. Because remember, inna sam'a wal basara wal fu'ad kullu ulaika kana anhu mas'ula, that our ears, our eyesight, and our hearts, they shall be held accountable to the Almighty. And then the thing which actually is very important, la tamshi fil ardi maraha. We must not be arrogant in our gait, because we are not going to cleave asunder the earth nor touch the mountains. The trait which the Almighty wants of us, requires of us, is humility, which of course is the opposite of arrogance. Arrogance is something which smacks as if we are close to God, or we are superior and the rest are inferior to us. This is something which is detestable in the eyes of the Almighty. We have to be down to earth. We have to look at our own faults. The biggest thing which makes us humble is always to have a very keen eye for the faults that we have, for the set of faults that we have. It keeps us humble. It keeps us in check. And of course, this is something that has to be done all the time. Viewers, with these few explanations, we now come to the next part of our study circle, which of course is the Hadith of the day. And the Hadith has been taken from the Al-Jami' al-Sahih of Imam Muslim. It has been reported by Abu Huraira. The words are, An Abu Huraira an Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam قال السعي على الأرملة والمسكين كالمجاهد في سبيل الله. Abu Huraira stated that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, he who strives to earn and spend on widows and the poor is like the one who strives in the cause of God. So remember, if we have to understand al-mujahid fi sabilillah, a person who exerts for the cause of God, then one of the things that can be classified, or one of the categories of this nature, is that people who strive to spend on widows, who strive to spend on the needy. The armala, of course, are the widows, and the miskin, we know, are the poor and the indigent. So people who strive to earn and therefore spend on the orphans, on the widows and the poor, are like people who actually are mujahid, actually who strive for the cause of God. So again, this is a big incentive which has been given by the Prophet of God. He tells us that looking upon the downtrodden sections of our society, in particular widows, of course, widows, we know, they need a lot of support. They need not only emotional support, but of course they need financial support as well. And similar is the case with people who are in need, the miskin. So let us have that compassion and sympathy in us. We have to understand that people in distress, they often don't come to us. We have to find them. It's easy for other people to come to us, and therefore we listen to them, and at times we help them. But there are so many people whose self-esteem stops them from begging. It stops them from coming forth and expressing themselves in want. So it is here that we have to look after such people. We have to find out such people who have this self-esteem that they would not actually ask for their own selves. So all the more important that we have to look out. And there are so many occasions, it's just a question of keeping our eyes and ears open all the time, all the while. At most places we find such people. And also remember that, of course, when the Prophet has pointed out towards Armalas and Miskeen, of course, the widows and the poor, he is referring to categories of people who are in need. Orphans, of course, many other people of similar type can be classified in the same category as well. It's just to at times highlight certain aspects that the Prophet picks up certain individuals and points them as if they represent a whole category. So basically, it's a category under discussion that people in need, people who are the weakest sections of society, they should be someone who have to be looked after by the society. And we have to find them out. We have to do what best we can. Of course, it is the responsibility of the state to do something for them, but states are always not that responsible, and hence we must also step up in this and play our role in this responsibility. So in this regard, we have to find out that as far as the situation is concerned, at times it presents us as a challenge, because there are so many people who are not that diligent, who are not that honest when they ask us. But of course, we have to do that due diligence in finding out the true needy among them. But still we can falter. But again, that is something which can happen, and therefore at times we may even be deceived by such people. Then even then, let's perhaps do our best so that we are able to help such sections of our society. Viewers, the third part of our study circle is the Bible verse of the day. I have chosen a verse from the Proverbs of Solomon, and this actually is a proverb which has been taken from chapter number 22. It's verse 6, and actually it refers to the responsibility of parents. So the words are, if a child is trained up in the right way, even when he is old, he will not be turned away from it. So what actually is being pointed out here is the responsibility of the parents, that if they instruct their child, if they really take care of their child in a proper way, then this is something which is going to stay with that child till old age, and hence can be transferred as a legacy to his own children and add on. Of course, we can see that this is a process which is going to go on. So one of the primary responsibilities as parents is to look after our children, is to give them time, is to be patient with them, is of course as they are growing up, is to make them people who have this thirst of knowledge in them, who have this thirst of finding the truth. To them, the truth is the ultimate thing. And one of the biggest gifts, dear participants and viewers, that we can give our children is this thing which I call critical thinking. To make them critical thinkers, not only in their own subjects, in for example, science, social sciences and other subjects, but in religion as well. We have to impart them with this faculty of questioning, of dialogue, of debate, so that when they have this streak in them, they can take up enormous challenges. So critical thinking is one of the most important things that we can instill in our children. And besides that, as I said earlier on, the quest for the truth is one of the biggest targets that we should make them achieve. And another thing in which we have to help our children is that we must help them in finding for themselves a mission in life, a target in life, an aim in life. You see, all of us, or most of us, we grow up as if we are aimless individuals who follow the culture, who follow traditions, who do all sorts of things without realizing that each one of us has been created for a higher purpose in life. We can achieve that higher purpose by actually devoting ourselves to that purpose. So let's teach our children to be devoted, to be missionary, to be devoted to a cause, and that cause and that mission should actually be proportionate, and it should actually match their own personal aptitude. So the more it is going to match their personal aptitude, the better result they can achieve as far as achieving various targets in life and also contributing to the society that they live in. Viewers, finally, we come to the last part of our study circle, and this is a discussion topic of the day. And The topic that has been put up here is, what is the best means of relaxation for me? Of course, this was meant for a discussion for people who are around us. And as far as the topic itself is concerned, we clearly can see that one of the most essential uh, parts of our life is that besides going through a lot of stress, besides achieving our targets, besides really spending our efforts and energies for the cause that we have devoted ourselves, our professions, our hobbies, it is equally essential that we relax. And this relaxation, of course, is not just physical relaxation, it is the relaxation of the mind as well. So, one important thing that we all must realize is that if we have to become healthy and better individuals, then our relaxation has to be something that must suit our own routine, and it has to be very regular as well. We have to be punctual in that, because if your life is full of stresses and you don't relax the way you should every day, for example, deep breathing, for example, doing exercise, doing yoga, doing some sports, doing some workout, or having a walk, maybe swimming or cricket or tennis or any good sport, I always call this as sports therapy. It's not just that your own physical being is being relaxed. When you do a sport, when you play a sport, your mind is also switched off. Otherwise, at times we don't really switch off our minds. We might be exercising, we might be walking, we might be swimming, but we're still thinking of our work. So a very good way to relax is to do some physical activity of the sort in which we are actually doing we are taking part in some sport, because that's going to switch off our mind, and that's going to relax our mind, that's going to make us individuals who feel rejuvenated, revitalized by the end of the day, and they are once again ready for the next day and the next day. So relaxation, I would say, is an extremely important part of our lives. A healthy mind and a healthy body is a given. Unless we have a healthy mind and a healthy body, of course, whatever target we set ourselves, whatever life we have planned for ourselves, is going to just fizzle out, and it's going to end in a fiasco. So it's a prerequisite that we find time for ourselves every day. This, of course, should not be considered as a wastage of time. We have to pick that time every day, just as we pick some time for our own for nourishment. For example, we eat, we drink on a very similar and regular basis. We must find time for ourselves to relax if we have to become individuals who can contribute and really make a difference in the society that we live in. So, viewers, with these verses, these words, I come to an end to our study circle. I'm now going to open up your mics, and if you have a question, please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I wanted to, regarding the last topic
Mm-hmm.
related to relaxation of self,
Mm-hmm.
is there any information available how Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to relax? Do we have any such information available?
I think that the information that we do have about him, as far as his physical relaxation is concerned, is very limited. We do know that he was extremely diligent in his worship practices. He would stand most part of the night for the tahajjud prayer, and he would seek the countenance of God Almighty. But other than that, in my own limited knowledge, I don't find. I mean, that was a form of spiritual relaxation. As far as physical relaxation is concerned, which is something of an exercise, like maybe doing. I do remember reading that very earlier on he would race with one of his beloved wives, which is Aisha, and once he actually she beat him, and then once he beat her, and the time when he beat her was the time when he was little young in age and had not put on weight. It is narrated in certain Hadith that at other times Aisha would beat him when the Prophet had grown old, because he had put on some weight. So we do find such a sprinkling in Hadith books, which does show that the Prophet was also fond of this physical activity. But I do think that in the early Meccan period, when he must have been a young lad and a young boy, or who would be doing all sorts of activities, we have a very scanty and very little record of his life in the Meccan period, and especially before he was 40 years old. We know that once he turned 40 and became a prophet, we do have some information about him, or at least something very palpable and concrete in the Meccan period. But before he had reached that age, the first 40 years of his life, we have some of his activities on record. But as far as any physical activity in this regard is concerned, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think there is anything on record.
Okay, thank you. One other thing was, this is just to understand, nothing related for information, for what has been your, as part of the Quran research and all, what has been your favorite or a verse where you have been intrigued a lot?
Well, of course, as you can see, that the Quran is such an inspiring book that it has so many passages which motivate and really move us. But if you ask me one single passage which really stands out to me, I would say the sacrificial verses of Abraham in Surah Safat, where Ishmael had actually said to his father that if al-ma tu'mar, that if you are seeing that you are sacrificing me in your dream, then look what a 14-year-old boy said to his father, that don't withhold yourself, and you are a prophet who has been guided. So therefore, just do what you have been commanded to do. So imagine a father who was blessed with a son at the age of 86 years. He was of course childless till that time, and imagine that the ordeal he would have gone through when he was taking Ishmael for sacrifice. And when we had, actually, the Quran says, "Falamma aslama wa tallahu lil jameen," which means that when both had submitted and he was actually on his forehead, he was actually face down like this. And this is something which is very difficult for a father to do. And Abraham chose to follow what the Almighty at least seemed to have told him, whereas the Quran itself said that the purpose was not that he should sacrifice his son. The purpose was the dream that he was shown actually signified the fact that he should devote his son to the service of the God of the house of the Almighty, which is the Kaaba. But Abraham actually interpreted the dream literally, and he actually, as we know, that he was almost ready to sacrifice his son when he was taught by the Almighty, and he said, "Kad saddaqta roya," and he said, "Oh Abraham, you have made your dream come true. This was not required. We were just testing you. Inna hadha la bala'ul mubin." Something to these effects are the words. So I think that this is something which really puts my hair stand on end whenever I read this passage of a mighty prophet and of an equally mighty son who were ready to do at one something which was so beyond all of us, that it's hard to imagine that how he could have gone through this in such a willing way, without any hesitation. And I really feel that this is one area in which that total submission before the Almighty became so evident. And we know that it is this which is the essence of Islam, to submit ourselves totally. So I would say that is always a passage that whenever I read, it really brings tears to my eyes and also makes my hair stand on end.
Well, thank you for sharing that information. Now, one last question I wanted to ask. What is your take on Messenger Luqman? Because I find him very a different personality, that he was not acquainted to a revelation. It was more of a deep understanding from his side.
Right. So as far as Luqman is concerned, we find historical records which tell us that he was a sage in Arabia, a wise person of Arabia. He was not a messenger or a prophet of God in the sense that we know messengers of God. He was a very wise person, and he was a tribal elder also. And the advice that we find in Surah Luqman that he was giving his son was actually being given at the time when he was transferring the reins of leadership to his son. And it was at this instance that he was telling him, and it's such a beautiful piece of advice, that don't worship anyone as God, except God as God, and you have to be very kind to your parents, and even if they are polytheist, kun fid dunya sahibhuma fid dunya ma'rufa. Still deal with them affectionately in this world. And then so many other things which are said in that passage, including his enjoining his son to the prayer and refraining from evil and enjoining what is good. And then, of course, waqsid fi mashika, that walk in a very, very humble way and do not bray like a donkey. And then, of course, la tusa'ir khaddaka linnas, don't be arrogant to people. So all these are such beautiful pieces of advice, and clearly the Quran, wherever it mentions, of course, this is the only place where he has been mentioned. He has not been mentioned as a prophet of God at all. He has been mentioned as a wise person who was a tribal elder, and the Arabs also knew about him. And therefore, because of this that they knew about him, they are told that look what your sage, who was telling his own son to worship one God and to be kind to your parents, look at what he is saying and look at what you are doing. So it was basically something which he was presenting as an advice to his child, or to his grown-up son.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, viewers, with this we come to an end to this study circle. Inshallah, see you next time. See you next week on the same time. So until then, it is Khuda Hafiz from here.